Our adults who were on the Costa Rica trip. We're only missing one youth because of illness. Actually, we didn't think Craig was going to be able to be with us, one of our chaperones, but he got home from his hunting trip at 3 a.m. and was like, I'm not missing this sucker. So, props to Craig, who is drinking loads of coffee right now, looks like. And welcome to all of you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your support of all of this, the auction and the fundraisers, the car washes and things like that, and prayer partners, and those who just catch these young people, and now as you're memorizing all their faces, we'll catch them again as they're here and say, hey, tell me more about this. I wanted to ask you about it. I didn't get a chance to get my question out, so which is probably because I was talking too much. So I'm going to open up the floor for you folks to ask questions, and that's kind of how we'll get started. And then for our folks here, just as they're like, ooh, I got one, and it may be multiples on one question, but we want to be able to share that with you as well. And then for you, as you saw in our text, if you have something you're like, ooh, man, I was really inspired to share something, but I wasn't on for the testimony during worship, you can fire that up as well. Okay? All right. Let's open with a prayer. Good and gracious God, we do give you thanks for the community. Not only those that went on this trip, but the community that sent them there, and in your spirit was there with them as well. We give you thanks for the ways in which you met us in this place, and the surprises that blessed us with your Holy Spirit and your abundant grace. We pray that what has been started in you, or continued in these young people especially, would be a fire that burns with your light and with your, as we heard in the children's sermon, with the salt, that we might be salt for the earth. And so we thank you for all the ways in which we have been blessed and been blessed to be a blessing. And we pray for this time together in Jesus' name. Amen. All right. Let me ask this group first. Is there anyone who wants to start us out by sharing something that you're like ready to go? Okay. Let's take a question then. Anybody out here? Yes, sir. Mr. Palmer. Nice and loud.
I'd like to know what questions the young people down in Costa Rica might have asked you that you found interesting.
What questions the kids might have asked down there that were interesting? Yeah. Anybody want to feel that? Yeah. Yep. Please, Sally. If you stand up here.
Okay. When we were going around distributing food bags, we went to one of the houses and we knocked on the door and we're like, hey, we're here with Rising Kings Ministry to distribute a food bag and wanted to know if we could pray for you. And the lady was really hesitant, kind of standing at the door, not quite sure if she wanted to come out and talk to us. And so we just explained a little bit more about the organization we were with and what we were out doing. And she slowly walked out, and then she stood on the other side of the gate, but was willing to talk to us and asked questions. And she was kind of wanting to know what it was like to be a Christian and pray and talk to God. And it was really cool. And then eventually she opened up the gate and we came in and prayed for her and stuff. But I thought it was neat that instead of just shutting us out and I'm not comfortable with this, she was willing to ask us about it and learn about our faith so that she could be more comfortable and talk to us. So that was a big question that we got, and she kind of just asked how we prayed and why we did that, and then we got to pray for her. So I thought that was really cool that she was willing to listen to what we had to say.
Thanks, Sally.
Sunday school kids, at least. We kind of talked about it a little bit in our service, but we didn't know a lot of Spanish. I think there was only 2 or 3 of us in our whole party that knew some conversational Spanish, and we had, of course, our translator with us. So we were trying to communicate with them, but it was very, very difficult because we only knew maybe a couple words, maybe some numbers, maybe some please and thank yous. So one of the things that some of the young kids did to kind of help us as we were trying to help them was asking how you say certain words in English. So they'd point to one of the stickers that'd be a dolphin, and we'd be oh, that's a dolphin. Or they'd be how do you say gracias in English? And we'd be oh, it's thank you. So that was kind of a question that we got from the younger kids, trying to understand us and why we were there, just as much as we were over there and trying to help help them and help understand them.
Great, yeah. Yeah, we're canceling all of high school French classes, by the way. We need more Spanish there.
So this will be really simple. Besides going from door to door and seeing all the people and all the joy that they had, it was the Bible study, the Bible classes with the kids, spending the day with the children. And the one thing they always ask every day, are you coming back tomorrow? Are you coming back tomorrow? Are you coming back tomorrow? And that's what sticks with me. Okay?
Yeah, I know.
Wow.
Right. Other questions? Hi, folks, my hand. Yes, please.
What were some of the surprises that Pastor Jonathan just mentioned in his opening prayer?
Yes.
Surprises.
Yeah.
Surprises.
Some of the surprises. What were you surprised by when you got there? What were some of these? Like, oh, we're doing that? Oh, I think I know one. Yeah.
When we got there, this is kind of funny. We like walked in and we like didn't like quite know like where we were staying, and so we walked down and they were like, oh, like this is our cabin, like we think this is it. And we like go in and we were all like really like loud because like we were excited and we had like our flashlights on and we like shined the flashlight on the bed and there was someone sleeping in the bed. And I don't know how she didn't wake up because we were so loud. And then I think it was Rachel that like screamed. And then we were like, oh no, and we like scared. And we like went out in the hallway and then we were like, okay, like we'll just go back in, like we'll get ready in the hallway, quietly go in, go to bed. And then we just kind of joined in, and they stayed in us. They were from Brazil, I think, was their team, and it was her and her daughter. And they stayed in our room, so I climbed up on the bunk bed, just went to bed, and then the next morning she woke up to a room full of us.
That's a great surprise.
So one of our
Wait,
surprise.
real quick too, I'm sorry, I should have said this before. So Sally, Corey, Natalie, and would you say your name when you're
My
when you're
name's
saying?
Cadence.
Yep.
Cadence, hold it right, real close.
My name's Cadence. One of the surprises that we experienced, at least for me, was when we went and delivered food bags. And I didn't know that we had to pray, like, just out loud by ourselves individually for them. And that was like, it was really tough for me at first because I had never done that before, but like after a few times, like it was rough at first, but after a few times you really get into like the rhythm of it and like speaking from your heart, and it was a really great experience, and I feel like I grew a lot as like a person from doing that. So.
Cool. Cool.
One thing that surprised me as well was that, so the guys all went to one place. Okay, we got our room, and it was just our team in there. There was no one else in it, right? Bunk beds. Of course, I'm the shortest guy, so they give me the top bunk. I don't know why that worked that way, but it did. But every morning, we work hard all day, and it's hot, and it's humid, and there is no cooling down at night. It's more of cold shower, jump into bed. Oh Lord, thank you for all that you've given us. We'll do this again tomorrow. Right? We're sleeping in. Breakfast at 6:30. Sometimes it was 7:15. But what surprised me the most was a lot of these youths up at 5:30 to do their morning runs. Every morning, they're running in Costa Rica. Right? I would only run to get the food, obviously. So when we went there, every morning, like clockwork, girls and guys would get up and go for their morning runs, right? Did you run a mile? 2 miles? Oh, 6. I did 10 today. Oh, I saw you on the highway. I saw you. It was the most amazing thing, and I was completely surprised that they had that energy after giving so much during the days. Because it's not only walking up. When Natalie talked about the stairs, I believe it was Natalie said that, and if I'm wrong, forgive me, but those stairs were so steep, and it was so incredibly warm. And not only is there stairs, there's fires burning, burning trash, you smell plastics and things, and it was really an eye-opener that you have to do this every day, and we're going to places and giving out your all. And for me, the physical part didn't bother me. I love to sweat, I love to be physical. It was the emotional part at the end of the day where you are so wiped out emotionally because of the joy that these people shared with you, no matter what. They were so joyful. That's what I brought home from this. And these kids had endless energy. At the end of the day, they're going. It's almost like, you need to go to bed now. You need to go to sleep. Forgive me for calling you kids, because you're not. You're young adults. So these youths did an amazing job by just going out there and doing all that they could, and then getting up bright and early and committing to what they normally do, but having the energy and abundance to do all that and enjoy it as well. And that's what surprised me most.
Very cool.
Great. Thank you.
Other surprises.
Yeah, and I have to say too that I know I'm not in the middle, sorry. I have to say too that we had, because of a change in job for our trip coordinator, we actually ended up with 4 male chaperones and no female chaperones. And at one point the chaperones looked at each other and we said, what are we doing here? I mean, we loved it, but it was kind of like, they were up, and we went over to check on the, our young women, and it's like, man, their cabin's cleaner than ours. So they were just really great at being just responsible and all that kind of thing. Yeah, I don't know how many miles, would you run, like 50 miles probably that week?
Yeah.
At least? Yeah, crazy. So, all right. Other questions you might have? Yeah, shout it out and I'll repeat it.
All right, so do any of you know Latin? I promise this is not as arcane as it sounds. Do any of you know Latin?
Anybody know Latin?
No?
There was a fair amount of French, a little tiny bit of Spanish.
Okay, so this question makes 0 sense if none of you know Latin, but I was going to ask, for those of you who did know Latin, did it actually help practically learning Spanish?
Yeah.
Knowing that it is a romance language.
I don't even know it. I know Hebrew, Greek, and Spanish a little bit. So the scary thing was I was the interpreter on a fair amount of occasions. Which, yeah, come on up. All right, Adam. Yeah, go.
So on the topic of Romance languages, so I know that a lot of us here spoke French, and as their school language, and so the fact that it was also a Romance language, again, since French and Spanish are both Romance languages, it actually helped me more than I thought it was going to be. I still didn't understand that much Spanish, but I think I understood more than I thought I was going to because I had the background in French.
Yeah.
Here you go, Natalie.
All right. So I just want to give a little bit of Rice and Beans Ministries is who we were with. So you'll see Rab Min on here. And just a quick history on that. The gentleman that runs the place, and I had a lot of surprises. Maybe that's why I prayed for it, because he had kind of the same organizational style as I do, which is, show up, it'll be fine. So there were a few things we weren't totally prepared for, but these guys did an amazing job. We had kind of a miscommunication about the VBS and how that was going to go, and then some other kind of things too. But people just rallied, and it was great. What was cool about that, though, was it was also a relaxed place. It was like, oh, can I go down there and see the chickens? Because there's kind of a farm area there. Can I go down and do this? Yeah. Can we go for runs? Oh, if you give me $20, I'll open the gate in the morning. Haha. That sort of thing. So it was really a nice place to just be. You felt welcome. You felt home right away. Would you guys agree with that? But this guy started in Petal, Mississippi, and he went on a church service trip, mission trip, down in this area, and he was caught up by that, like our young people have been, and went down again, and then went down and stayed longer, and then sold his construction business, which was pretty big, and moved down there entirely to build, because he saw the building conditions that we saw. Began to build churches and houses for pastors and things like that, and then realized, gosh, we're building these things, we should be working on housing too. So they did some of that construction-wise. And then they realized the food insecurity, and so Rice and Beans became kind of the focus of giving that food, and then they got partnered with the schools and the VBS and that kind of thing. So that's what we would do, is go to the school, do the VBS in the morning, then come back, have lunch, and then pack bags, the bags that you decorated, and then we would distribute those in the afternoons, and that's kind of what our routine was for those days. As well as some fun activities too, a little zip lining, and an extra trip to kind of a nature preserve as well. So we got to see some of the beauty of the country too. Yeah, in many ways. Other questions?
I'll give one.
You'll get
I'll
one.
go
Pastor Bill.
I'll go
Okay,
for a
now
question.
we're coming back.
I'd just love to hear a little bit of what the worship life was like, how you came together. I don't know if you did it at the end of the day, and was that impactful? Was it different, helpful, etc.?
Yeah.
Worship what? Yeah.
At the end of my name is Aiden.
Well, that's okay.
My name is Aiden. At the end of the day, we would like sing like these newer Christian songs, and that's what would be our worship. And then like it just mainly be that, and we would like pray at every meal, and yeah,
Yeah.
that's basically it.
Yeah, it was kind of a contemporary worship, and it's interesting. Some of our kids were like, "Yeah, I love this. Oh, this is great." And some of our kids were like, "I kind of missed the structure of our worship." We did have the musician. I don't think you guys know this, but the musician who was leading came up to me, and it was almost teary-eyed. He said, "I am so impressed with your kids." Or he said, "You have the greatest kids here." And I said, "Yeah, I know." And I said, "I'm not bragging. I just know. You're right. I wasn't even kidding." But he said, I said, "What specifically did you notice?" And he goes, "These kids know why they are here, like why they're in the faith. They know why they're brought to worship." And he's like, I'm leading this kind of praise worship. And he goes, "I actually like liturgical worship." And he's like, "Your kids do too. And they understand it, and they can talk about it." So that structure of worship and that rhythm of life and faith, they get it. A lot of them that he was able to talk to, and he was just really impressed with you guys. So maybe it's tell all of you that. There it is. All right. Yes. Well, I have one in the back. No? Okay. Okay.
I just want to know because these are all high school kids.
They're all high school. Yep.
What were the ages of the children that you were ministering to?
Okay. Yeah. So the children we were ministering to. Yeah. You guys want to handle that one? It's not a long answer.
We had like the general ages. I think it was like 4 to 11, 12 maybe. We did have for the first VBS day with the younger half of the kids, and then we progressed on to the older kids, and then together at the end was both young and old. And we did also have some of their siblings would come that were even younger. I think there was like 2 or 3 year olds. But it was really interesting to see the different ways that the different ages connected. Like some of the older kids, they're like, "Oh, I think they're too cool," but then they'll like warm up to it, and they really enjoyed it. And the little kids just are so excited to just be a part of something together. So,
Speaking of kids, Sue, I'll take your question, and I'm going to go back to our middle and high school and see what they got.
So kind of a mix of questions. First, as chaperones, what did you get from this experience? Would you do it again? And for the young people, what did you get out of your chaperones?
I hate this question. The second part.
Yeah, my name is Craig. So we had a really amazing time. Pastor Jonathan mentioned that we didn't really need to be there. These kids were so well behaved, and really anytime we asked for anything to be done, 3 of them would volunteer to do it, or all of them would volunteer. It was just truly a blessing. There was one day where we had the option of going to VBS in the morning or staying at they have a little working farm there. And so several of us stayed behind. It turned out it was all of the guys on the trip stayed behind to do some farm work. Except for one guy. Three chaperones and all the young men. And it was hard work. It was hot, humid, and it was it's a lot of work. Farming is hard work. And it reminded me, and I mentioned it to everyone later, it reminded me of the curse in the Garden of Eden, that we're going to toil. We need to work in order to provide. And seeing these young men working as hard as they did without complaints, without any prompting, was truly amazing. We did have a Costa Rican farmer who was working with us, and he didn't speak English, and so he would use his phone and Google Translate to try and tell us what we needed to do. And at one point, we were tying up the buds of the tomato plants, and he was trying to explain what to do, and so he typed it into Google, and it said that we were now to take the strings and tie up the children.
That's part of the trip, yeah, right? You want to say a word? Okay. Or Joel? He's thinking.
The one thing I noticed mostly with the youth is that when we arrived there, it's a totally different country, right? As Aiden explained, we arrived van late at night. We've been traveling all day. We start heading out, and I like to watch. I was raised by law enforcement people, so I'm always in the back of the room and I'm always watching, right? So that's just how I am. And I made it a point on this trip to really observe the youth that were with us. And what I noticed a lot was when we first got there, it was a daily evolution. So we're driving there at night, and it's different. We're all looking out, okay, we're tired, we're good. Well then, as Aiden said, we're going up these these were steep roads in a van, and people are whizzing by on motorcycles at night and driving fast in cars, and we turn up this corner, we're almost there, we're at a steep road, and a car that had whizzed by us and passed us earlier that we all commented on had now broken down at the tippy top of the hill. So in this large vehicle, we stop there, and we're not going anywhere, and the longer you stop, they turn off the air conditioner, or it just doesn't work. So now we're cooking, we're sweltering, and then the gentleman driving the van decides to back down the hill. And the look on their faces was fear, right? I was scared, but I didn't show it. I was like, this is great, we're having a good time. But when we did turn around and we got there, so that was the first night. The second day was more, everyone was just trying to realize, where's our place? What are we going to do? And when do we get to give? When do we? So that was all. And then we started doing the routine of meals, prayer, going out, coming back, filling the bags, more prayer at night, more fellowship. And then each day, it seemed like they wanted to go out more, and they wanted to go out more. And if we couldn't get out, they just wanted to do more. And I truly believe that if we could have handed bags out 24 hours a day, that they would have done it, right? And as Craig said, they really didn't need us. And what I got from the trip was that I really needed them, because it showed me that the future is right here, right? And a lot of this future that I see nowadays, it's not right? I guess in the 60s they wondered, well, these long-haired people listen to the Beatles are going to run our country? Oh Lord, right? And then my generation, I don't know what they thought of us, but we're here now. And now I look and I see what we have, and it gives me hope, because these are the most amazing group of people that I've ever been with. And as a whole collective, they showed me and taught me a lot. And each day, being with them brought me the greatest joy, and to watch them evolve. And from not wanting to pray to arm wrestling to see who's going to pray next. No, I want to do it. They really didn't arm wrestle, right? Because Joel would have won. But it became a point where it didn't matter how many times we prayed. It was anybody would do it. Before it was we had to pick, or it's okay, you go. But then it got to the point where it became second nature, and they were truly servants of God. And I'm so proud of all of them. I'm very proud.
So I have to tell one quick prayer story. So Rachel was fairly new, kind of new to the group, and came with her friend Cadence and all that kind of stuff. And so our group didn't have to, I say get to, but have to pray the first day. The woman said, the interpreter said, do you want to pray or do you want me to pray? And there were exceptions, certainly, right from the start, but mostly it was like, yeah, why don't you do it? Because it's kind of hard. You pray in English, it's translated, then you got to pray the next phrase and kind of keep your train of thought and all that kind of stuff. So, and then I saw the other group. We had split off into two. I saw the other group, and they were every single time praying. I was like, what was different? And they said, oh, she didn't give us a choice. She just said, you pray, I translate. So they were put on the spot. So on the bus ride, I said to our folks, so as we're going out with these baskets to my group, I know yesterday you had the option to pray, but I've talked to our interpreter, and I told her, no option today. They pray, you translate, please. I was nice about it. And I got some big eyes, and I remember Rachel, I came out to Rachel and I said, I know you're kind of new to this whole thing. Do you want some ideas on maybe how to start a prayer kind of thing? She's like, yeah. Right? And I don't want to overemphasize that. And I gave her some ideas. And so the first person she goes up to, I'm like, and they're just kind of asking for the health, kind of simple things. Go up to the first one, and she's like, my son is missing, and there's this, and there's that. It was like complicated. And Rachel steps up, and just this beautiful, it was like the Spirit, you could just see the Spirit flowing out like a light. And that was really beautiful to see. And you saw it all the time, but that was just one example of seeing how God's like, oh, you're new to this? I got you. Kind of thing. And that was really cool to see with everyone, but especially them. Yeah. So young people you want to say anything about what you learned from your chaperones?
Why don't you pass the mic?
Yeah, why don't we go with everybody?
DJ,
Yeah. Oh, sorry, one more chaperone.
Oh, and yes, I would definitely do it again, and I would be insulted if they didn't ask me.
Yeah. This may be our go-to international trip, actually. We'll see about that, but.
Oh, Corey,
You got applause.
Well, I'm gonna keep this brief, because I wanna hear what all of you guys got out of this. But I went on 4 years mission trips with PJ when I was here as a high schooler, and I personally got more out of this trip, I think, than any of those trips. And it is because of these amazing kids. I wanna thank all of you guys for making this trip amazing, and just being vulnerable and connecting with each other, and I'm so happy I did this, and I would definitely do it again.
All right. Yes,
I have a middle school question.
middle school question. All right, we'll take that, and I'm gonna have these guys share. Go ahead.
It might just work.
It might just work out for me? Okay, cool.
Yeah, so I'm going to represent our middle school students, and they were chatting, and they're wondering, what did you guys do to prepare for this trip, and things that they should be thinking about as the next generation of kids going, and if you guys have any real true takeaways that are going to lead you into your next journeys as juniors and seniors in high school.
Wow, and into college even as well. So we're just gonna go down the line here. You got that? All right, so let's go, sir. You guys are getting all relaxed over there. All right. So it kind of addresses your question, but with the middle schoolers as well. So what should they prepare for, and what do you take forward?
Well, one thing that I was like surprised with, and that I wish I kind of prepared for more, but
And his name is Tyler.
yeah,
Sorry.
my name's Tyler. But praying on the spot, like you go up to a house and then it's your turn to pray, and you kind of got to come up with it as you go. It's really, I feel like I grew a lot in that sense, and it was really cool, and I was excited to do that.
Thanks, Tyler. Yeah, sorry.
Well, my name's Sawyer. I was kind of surprised how happy everyone was. Like, even though they had barely anything, they were all like really joyful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Grown-ups have talked enough. Also, bonus question for you. What's the weirdest thing someone brought on the trip? Boxing gloves?
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding. They were really cool. I'm sorry.
So now, next trip,
Yeah.
bring both pairs, and we can actually spar.
Oh, sweet. I see. Or maybe not. All right. What would you tell them to prepare for as the next generation? What did you learn?
Thing that I learned
Victor, by the way.
the most, the best, is that I was actually praying wrong, and that. But if you just pray like every day, like it doesn't actually do anything. The only way to actually hear the voice of God is to actually read the Bible, and because the Bible is God's word, and so if you're just talking to God, if you don't read the Bible, you can't like hear what God is saying to you. That's it.
Amen.
It's a better conversation if you don't pray. I mean, if you don't read the Bible.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Great insight. Yeah. Victor was also the one, we were like, all the hairiness of getting to the airport and all that kind of stuff. We hadn't even taken off yet. He's like, hey, PJ, what about the people who lived before Jesus died? Like, what about them? I'm like, man, wait, can we just take off first? Emmanuel, you want to share? I give Victor a hard time, so.
My name's Manuel, and one thing I should have prepared for was keeping track of my phone. 'Cause I lost it. But luckily I found it because it was with Tyler. But
Was it Tyler?
it was with Tyler. Yeah, but other than that, I'd say we were working with kids a lot, and I had never been like a mentor towards kids. But I felt like throughout the week we all got better at working with these kids, and we actually gained a lot and it made us better people. And I really enjoyed that.
Thanks, Emmanuel.
One thing I feel like I should prepare myself more for was, I'm Violet, was that I know a little bit of Spanish, but it surprised me there, when we got there, I couldn't really understand anything of what the kids were saying, especially because they talk so quietly and so fast, and they expect you to understand everything that they're saying, but you don't.
Yeah. And if you haven't yet, you'll hear from Violet, her testimony as well, at worship.
Hi, I'm Emma. The biggest thing I prepared for was like just preparing too much, like overthinking, getting there and what was going to happen, and just thinking about it too much, I think made it more stressful. Once we got there, it was just like you started doing stuff, you started going in the room, going out to the homes, and it became more fun, and I was like, oh, this was definitely way overthought. I think the biggest thing I took away was just thinking about like all those little things in life that you think about too much and stressing about, and it's really not that big of a deal, like in the grand scheme of life. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Sally, and I would have to agree with Violet. I probably need to do some Duolingo before the next trip. But what I learned was kind of just how to like go out there and be a disciple. I feel like no matter what we were doing, like I just was trusting like God's timing and that like everything was going to work out. And we went and like as we were distributing food bags, just like making our priority to be like spreading Jesus' love. And no matter what, like that was our goal. And I think we did a good job at that.
Amazing, and I don't want to copy what Sally and Violet said, but yeah, I wish I prepared more of the language. And I feel like one of the things I like took back from Costa Rica is like taking stuff that I have for granted. And I feel like I took a lot of stuff for granted while they have nothing and they enjoy everything they have.
So my name is Rachel, and one of the things that I took away from the trip was not like really appreciating what I had, because when we got there, it was really shocking to see that people didn't have as much as people do in Rica, and like we just really, I remember I felt so guilty, but the guy we went through, Fred, right? Yep, Fred, he told us like to not feel guilty and just kind of use that and to help people. And so I just say, don't like be really appreciative of what you have.
I really think, like, one of the best, I think it's really good to prepare yourself, to put yourself out there and, like, allow yourself to share God's word, and it's really important to, like, be a good, like, mentor for these kids. Like, they want to have someone to look up to, and you have to, like, show them what it means to you and allow them to feel the joy that you feel about God's love.
I'm Katie, and I feel like I would say getting comfortable like talking to new people and around new people, like with praying, but also just like talking to them. It was hard because there was like the language barrier, but I feel like just having like trying to have conversations with the kids and the people like that we went to the houses of, and then also just like talking more to people in our group. Like I'm good friends with a lot of people in our group, but a lot of the people I like didn't know super well from before, so I feel like getting more comfortable with it.
I'm Annabelle, and I think for me, I just wasn't really prepared for like how big of an impact the kids would have on me and like the connections that we would kind of make. Because I remember the second day that we went with the younger kids, 2 little girls ran up to me and they like gave me a big hug, and they were just really excited to see us and have us back. And so I think, I don't know, just prepared for like their hearts to be filled from all of these kids. It was really nice to see.
This is more of something to like keep in mind while you're on the trip, but listening is really important, at least for me it was. One of the things that they kind of talked about when telling us like what we were kind of to expect while we were going door to door was like it's really important to just be there to listen to them and their stories, and I feel like that was definitely something that I think almost everybody here had an experience with, because they all have their own stories and they all have their own cultures and experiences that are very different from ours, and just being able to hear, seeing like maybe a little bit of a glimpse of their life, hearing a little bit of their stories was just really impactful, to me at least. And another part of it is, and I think everybody kind of mentioned it a little bit, is the importance of going out, putting yourself out there. Because I certainly learned, I'm using the example of VBS because that was the part that I was most passionate about. But I learned a lot more during VBS when I was like sitting with the kids, going around giving gifts, when they got questions right from the Bible stories, sitting with them while they're doing crafts, asking them questions, teaching them English, them teaching me Spanish. And I felt like I made more connections, more by listening than speaking.
Thank you guys. Yeah, that's amazing. And I know Ansel can't be here. I see his parents back there, so you can correct me if I'm wrong on this. But Ansel's a ninth grader, so he was on the young end of this, because after your ninth grade year, you can go on these trips. And to see him grow and blossom in just a faith maturity. I mean, the maturity in lots of different ways. I mean, he's not an immature kid by any means, but just to see that growth and to see, and this is kind of what we do with what we talk about with our service and mission trips, is to see someone's peripheral vision just go like that, right? And again, I'm not saying his was narrow, but just to see it widen in such a way that, oh, this is the world. This is a part of the world I would never necessarily see otherwise, or this is how I pray, and this is what oh my gosh, I can do this kind of thing. That's the generalization in some ways, but to see a young man like that just really grow up in those ways is wonderful. So I can't tell his story, but Mom and Dad, anything to add?
He's very sick this morning, unfortunately.
Yeah.
That's why he's home, but he wished the trip were longer.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point. He's sick at home. He texted me last night and said I'm in bad shape, so thank you guys for being here, but we miss him. And he said he wished the trip was longer. And I think there was a group that did that. They kind of came in on the service, were there for the weekend, and then in for the service, and then out at the end of that. And I think that's probably how we would construct that in the future. Would you guys agree? Maybe more like 10 days there versus the 7 or so that we had, for sure. Yeah. I want to go back to the high school and middle school. You have any other questions you want to give?
Moving forward, is this something we do again, or do other things?
So, all right, we'll vote. How many would say, let's do this for our international trip again? Yeah. Sawyer, you abstain, or, oh, you will, okay, yeah, for sure, yes. Okay, other questions, yeah. I'm gonna get one back here and then I'm gonna come back to you.
So I'm just curious, you've had this mountaintop experience, right, of this great faith journey, and then you come home for a few weeks and you start back to school or chaperones back to work. And so I'm curious about how this year might be different re-entering school, what you might have brought with you from the trip that you've incorporated into your life now.
That's a great question. Sally, go ahead.
I think this is a word that like a lot of us mentioned, but just being grateful. As I kind of like went into the school year, it's like senior year, like really hectic, and I was like feeling really stressed at the beginning, and then I just kind of like paused and I was like, wow, like I really need to like be grateful that like I'm having this experience and that like I'm able to like think about going to college, and like that's okay that it stresses me out, but just recognizing that like I have a lot of opportunities that people around the world don't. And so feeling grateful for that and trusting God's timing. That was something that like really resonated with me on the trip, was that I kind of like went into it like coming from a place of like, I mean, I had my faith, but it wasn't like incredibly strong at the moment. And so I think God's timing of like this trip was so perfect, and I just like went into it and was like, all right, like this is going great, and then like my school year started, I was like, what is happening? And then it just like worked out, and I just like had a lot more trust in that, so that's what I took away.
Yeah, great. Thanks. Other folks, and I've said some takeaways.
If I may say one thing?
You may say, I guess so.
All right. The one thing that I stressed when we were there is that they all did a tremendous job. And like they said, gratefulness. But my one thing I asked myself and everyone else is don't forget what we were doing and where we're at. Because once we came home, it's very easy to forget. Where's my phone? Where, friends or whatever. And work and jobs. But never forget that even though we're back here doing what we're doing, and we said it there, that they're still going through it. They're there today. Hopefully somebody's giving them food. So a big part of it for me was I'm never going to forget that in this moment now that other people are struggling. And not only them, but others. And we have to remember that and be so grateful, as everyone has stated, for what we have.
Yeah, I think the gratefulness and the generosity as well. Yeah, we actually had a little snafu on the way, and we left some of the bags that we intended to bring. It's a long story and it's not that interesting, but I was like beating myself. Oh, how do we do that? Losing sleep and all that kind of stuff. But the kids were like, it's not about the food, PJ. It's not about the bags. Like it's the experience that we have. And when I said to Fred, the director, I said, do you want us to send those bags to you? Do you want us to send them to Mississippi, to the headquarters? Where do you want us to put those? And he goes, y'all don't have hungry people where you live? So there is a take home, always, in these kinds of things as well. So we don't have to go more than a couple miles from our church to know that there's need and there's connection to be had. Go ahead.
I'd like to see by a show of hands, for which ones of you, this was your first trip outside of North America?
Wow. Just two of you? Three. Yeah, three, okay. Yeah. Right. For how many of you was it your first service trip, first mission trip? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So out of 18 of us, 10 was the first one for 10, and actually 9 of our youth. Yeah. Yeah. Great. Yes.
I came a little late, so maybe this is already asked, but I was curious if they ever invited you into their homes, and if so, what were their homes like? If you could just describe that a little bit.
Yeah, there's a varied answers here, I think, but yeah, go ahead.
We went into a couple homes. It kind of depended on the places that the homes that we went into. For instance, the government issued houses. So we went to 3 different towns or villages. 2 of them were not government funded, so the government didn't give them any money to help pay for their housing or their food. And then there was one village that we went to that it was government paid housing, so they gave them a little bit of money to pay for their housing and pay for the food. They were still under the same living conditions, they had the same income. Most of them didn't have jobs, but I think the main difference was that the people who didn't have the government housing were often immigrants, and the people who did have the government housing were not. But one of the things that I noticed, especially in the government-issued housing, was the amount of pictures of their families. I think we all have pictures of our families throughout our house, but when we just walked into the living room, especially one of these houses that had, I think some twin girls and I think an older sister or something. We walked into their living room and there was just so many pictures, especially of the children, all around just the living room. They were on a shelf, they were on the walls, they were everywhere. There was also a lot of crosses. Again, it kind of depended on the housing, but again, just especially in the government-issued houses, there was a lot of the signs of God, crosses, signs of Jesus throughout the housing. So that was the main thing that I noticed, how family orientated they are there. Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing.
Yeah, a lot of people invited us into their houses, which was super nice because it felt like they were comfortable inviting strangers like us into their houses and praying with them. And there was this one incident where this person invited us into their courtyard, and Joel misunderstood it and just walked straight into their house. The person was super confused, and eventually she invited us in.
On the group of houses that were non-government funded, there was one, and the gentleman who owned it was an immigrant from Nicaragua, I believe, and he invited us into his house, and whenever they invite us in, we always like look to our translator because she has to confirm if it's safe or not. And so we go in, and he's in, and we all group around in like a circle, and he just seems really proud of like what he's done, and like how much like love is in like his house, and it's like the pictures are like there's like artwork, and he's like done the best with what he has, and it's just really beautiful. And yeah, and he was just really happy to show people how proud he was and to pray with us. And he also volunteered or offered to pray for us as well afterwards. And a few families did that, but it was really great to exchange those prayers.
I think one thing that we experience on almost all of our servant trips, different cultures, different places, not always internationally. I see this with the Blackfeet tribe and things like that as well, but is what hospitality looks like in its highest form. I think it's lost a lot of times in a lot of Northern European, Western culture, American culture, just how critical that is in the scriptures, how critical hospitality is, and it is in Eastern cultures, but in a lot of other cultures as well. And I think we experience that in some pretty amazing ways. Yeah, the openness kind of thing. Other folks want to comment on that?
One quick thing.
Experience?
A lot of the houses, the government ones was more like a neighborhood, right? But the houses, the first day down the path with the mountain, and there's running water. Smelled terrible, right? So you know you're in the midst of poverty. The houses were made of tin roofs, dirt floors, crates, whatever they could find, crates, plastic, anything to create some kind of barrier. They were built on top of one another, doors that were either chained or barred or no handles, just a piece of wood or tin. But these people were immaculate, right? They were dirt floors, cleanest feet I've ever seen, right? From that, clean clothes, but they lived like that. Dirt floors, tin roofs. Some of those places that we saw, it was extremely overwhelming. One of the couches I remember, this at the bottom of the very steep hill, they invited us, our group, into the house. And it was a larger house, but it's dirt floor. Their couch was a couch frame, but what they sat on were the foam inserts, right? There was foam inserts with no coverings. Extremely dirty, just because you're in a dirt house, but that's what they had. Wires, and if you're an electrician, what you saw there was frightening. I'm not an electrician, and it frightened me to where all the boxes came together, and things that were done professionally and things that were not done professionally. And these people live in that day to day, and there's so much rain and so much weather. I do not understand how they did that and still have the joy that they had. We're talking dirt floors, and it was really eye-opening.
Does anyone remember when we went down that first day, we had come by, remember and we were like, oh, this looks like kind of nice neighborhood up here and stuff like that. Do you guys remember what you saw? Anybody want to share that? If you remember that? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Remember the wall, the first place we
I
were walking down?
yeah, I'll share it. So we walked down and you looked up, I think it was the first place we went, and this was by the school as well. So we did see some of our kids there. But you looked up and you realized, oh, that place that we saw with that land and that kind of nice little villa kind of place is up there. It's right up there. And there's this cliff. And up above there's this huge fence and this barbed wire kind of thing. If you went to the end of that fence, you probably could barely even see the folks that were down below, right? These folks who were trying to fight for a spot here. Again, mostly immigrant community. And yet, like, from up above, it was green and pristine and beautiful and all that kind of stuff. And then just below, like right there, was this probably the worst condition-wise housing we saw. And so it made me think about where my eyes are and what I'm seeing and what I'm looking at, what I'm choosing to look at. So that was a big lesson for me, I know. Yeah. Other questions? We got a couple more probably. Yeah, go ahead.
You live in a different culture. You live in a different climate. You live in different environment, a different language. What did you see that you had in common with
Yes,
them?
great question. So there were a lot of differences. What were the places of connection or commonality? Yeah.
So, a commonality that I noticed was with the little kids on the first day. I was struggling to connect and we couldn't understand each other, so we kind of like formed a bit of like sign language. I mean, I don't know sign language, but we formed our own of like a way to talk to each other. And then I started drawing pictures of the little kids, and they got really excited, and they drew pictures of me, and we were exchanging just pictures of each other. And it's just amazing how everyone can connect over art, we can connect over music, and singing songs. They love the songs. We sang songs in English, we sang songs in Spanish, and they learned them, and like we all just have a shared love of expression and art and music, and I think that's a really great way to connect with people.
Yes, excellent. Other folks want to share? Yeah, come on, Joel. Joel will now sing the song Parakeet. Cha, chiki, cha, chiki, cha, cha, cha.
So the first day of VBS, we were supposed to play some organized games with the boys, but it basically just dissolved into chasing a ball around for 3 hours, something like that, right? And keep away, which is very similar to what happens at all church camp with the boys. They just chase a ball around, and it was a ton of fun. There was no organization, no rules, but just communicating with hand gestures, and it just felt like being at church camp.
Yeah, it was great.
Great. And laughter was a big thing, right? Just smile on your face, and it brought them to a sort of ease, where as long as you just smiled, they got it, and then it was laughter and warmth was the way to communicate to them.
Yeah, facial expressions are translatable very easily. Other folks feel like you had a connection? If it was a commonality or just a connection even? Yeah, all right, good.
So, I think one of the most, on the first day I went there, I went to this church service, and I thought it was just cool that, like, even though I didn't understand anything that was being said, because it was all in Spanish, that, like, we're still worshiping the same God. And that's cool.
Yeah. Absolutely, for sure. Yeah. Solve it.
The kids there, they like had backpacks and like other like shirts and stuff, but like kind of the stuff that we watched, like Spider-Man, Cars, all other type of cartoons. And I thought that was pretty cool how they like the same like cartoons like I like.
That's a big takeaway. Same cartoons. There was a question. Yeah, go ahead.
What's the religious life when groups like this are not there? Those villages that were there churches in those villages?
Oh, the religious life of the people?
Of the people,
yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, like as I said, the people there, they didn't like deny our prayer, and it felt like everyone there was like they like were Christians, because the houses that we went into, there was a lot of like pictures of like Jesus on the wall, and they all had like crosses on the wall too, and like the Bibles, and most of the people that we talked to, they said that they pray and read the Bible all the time too. So it feels like it's like a Christian-based community in Costa Rica.
When we were like going to pray for one of the houses, we were in the government housing, and we like knocked on the door, and one of the ladies that came out, her name was Pastor, and she was a pastor, which was like really cool. And she invited us into her house, and like we prayed with her, and she prayed for us. So the faith there, we definitely met like a lot of people who had like pretty strong faith, and we were like, oh my gosh, I want to pray for you. But there was like some people who like asked us questions, and we got to like talk to them a little bit about it. So there was a big variety, but everyone was like very open-minded about it. So it was cool.
And we did see churches along the way, and we also worshiped the first Sunday we were there, actually the second day we were there. So we got a chance to experience that. That was a fairly large church, but there were lots of little places around as well. There's a very large, Roman Catholic community, of course, but there were lots of other places as well. I never saw Lutherana, but it's there somewhere. Were you gonna say? Yeah.
Just talking about that church service that we attended, they were singing in Spanish, of course, and most of the songs I didn't recognize, but then there was some that I recognized and I knew the English version of, so I was able to like hum along and just connect that way. They also, I thought was really interesting, they had these dancers, young girls, and they were like waving like kind of silk ribbon around and dancing for the songs. And I thought that was a really cool way to like express with the music. I really liked that.
Yeah, it was. You talked about commonality too. I noticed with Victor, I give Victor a hard time a lot, but he would go around and he was kind of hanging out with other groups and stuff like that. And I'm like, is everything cool? And he's like, yeah, I'm getting to know the other people. Like, isn't that what everybody's supposed to do? I'm like, absolutely. Good job, man. Come on up, yeah.
This is more something that goes along with the church, but when we went to the service at their churches, it was the second day, but the first full day that we were there.
Yeah.
One of the things that I noticed that was a little bit different from what I'm used to, at least, was when we were sharing the peace, there were people that came up to us, complete strangers, and they just gave us hugs. Like we were their best friends, their neighbors, people that they see every single day, which was definitely a shock to me, because like in America we only really give hugs to people that we know really well, but they were welcoming us in and acting as if we've been there a million times before, and we were just seeing them again after this last week.
Awesome, thank you. All right, we'll take another quick one here. Go ahead. Oh yeah, we're close enough, I can do that.
So when they got back, I noticed some changes in my kids. And I had three of my family members there. Just growth in their faith and things that they suddenly showed interest in that I wouldn't have thought otherwise. Sawyer was like really excited. He wanted to be a counselor at All Church Camp, and Violet with lifeguarding there, and then wanting to start teaching swim lessons with the little kids and stuff. And then Craig obviously had a very big faith, growing experience there, but I just wanted to know, maybe for the parents of the other kids, did they see growth in their kids and see changes in their kids when they came back?
Oh, yes.
That's a big question.
A big understanding of the differences in the world that they would. Yeah, so the observations and the feelings that they returned with just show that their minds had opened up, right? I was going to ask something separate, and I'm going to plug this in real quick. I had a daughter before I got stationed in the Middle East that kind of had a meltdown before she went there, because all she knew was what she saw on television, and I would compare that with all we see about Middle or Central and South America is the drug cartels own everything there and they control everything there. Did you have any fears on the flight down, and was it changed on the flight back about things like that?
Well, let me give the parents a chance, and then we're going to get back to any other parents want to say something they saw. I'm trying to look at different parents. Oh yeah, all right. Another view of Emmanuel. Wow, Emmanuel, you get double dipped here. Looks exciting.
I was happy to hear about all of the experiences that Emmanuel shared with us, and I wish one of you, kids or young adults, would share about this cross or the necklace that was given to one of you. Did that really Emmanuel shared a story that was really heartwarming.
Do you recall
The cross that
The
you,
cross.
from the bags you put
The
together. Yeah,
the necklace?
Uh-huh.
The necklace?
yeah, yeah, right.
No, the was there a necklace that was, somebody was wearing a necklace and it was given to you? Do you want to share that, expound on that, Emmanuel?
one of the other groups.
Oh, it was from one of the
Yeah,
other
but-
groups. You wanna share it, Emmanuel?
Yeah. Yeah, oh, right. Yeah, one of the other groups, I think, they were from Tennessee. They were out giving their food bags, and when they gave this food bag to one of their, the people from the houses, he gave them a cross necklace in response. Like, he felt that even though, I mean, we all felt that even though he had so little in his house, that he was able to give like the last things that he had, you know, and it felt like even though he had so little, he had so much in his heart. So,
Great summary of that. We don't know that we have time to get to all of that with the folks. We need to wrap up, unfortunately. But you'll notice, if you see folks with red shirts, you'll notice on the back it says "Love is," and we were either going to come up with something together, or we talked with our youth and they're like, oh, I think, you know, we interpreted it differently. And so you'll see "Love is" on the back, and then we each wrote in something. So if people are following you, you guys, you know, it's okay. But for those who have the red shirts, at least you'll be able to see what we said. You might say, do you still think that's what love is, or what did you come away with? So I'm going to say this now. Which one of you would like to pray us out? All right, Sally, come on up.
All right, dear God, thank you for giving us the opportunity to gather here today and just share our story and get to be with these people and share our faith and what we learned on this trip, and be with us as we head into our week, and just keep us all healthy and safe as we go into school and work. And amen.
Amen. Thank you. Thank you guys for coming. Thanks again for the support. I'd say it's a pretty good investment.